The climate section of the ArcGIS online assignment talks here in step 8 about standard deviation and the need for some discussion about it before we move on. So here's a little brief introduction to it. Normal distribution is a worldwide statistical term. This is the way things are distributed, whether we're talking about height or marks or almost anything statistical you can think of. Most things gather around the middle. So in other words, we're talking about height. Most people are around the same height. You'll have an average height and some people a little bit above, a little bit below. Then you've got some people who are unusually high, unusually tall, or really, really tall, or unusually short, or really, really short. And the statistical term for this is standard deviation. So you'll see the plus ones and minus ones and plus two and minus twos here. This means one standard deviation above the mean. And this means two standard deviations above the mean. Standard deviation is a calculation that takes all the data, and there's a process that we don't need to talk about right now. You'll do that in a stats class at some point. The good news is that ArcGIS and Excel and various things like that will calculate standard deviation for you. But that's what it means. And what it means is that, as you can see, about 68% of all people will fall within one standard deviation of the mean. So if you're just a little bit taller than the mean or a little bit shorter than the mean, that's not unusual. This is slightly unusual. This is very unusual, right? So if you want to do that in ArcGIS Online, here's an example. So I'm looking at the growing season in days, one of the layers that you have to map. And if we open up the table here for this, it lists all the various variables in that table. Among those is one called growing season in days. It's quite a long way across here. Growing season in days, right? So this lists the growing season in days for all the places on that map. If I click on that heading, I can sort it, but what I care about here right now is I can click on statistics, and it tells me, among other things, the average, which is another word for the mean. So the average number of growing days, length of growing season in Canada is 107.5 days, and the standard deviation is 71.05, so we'll call it 71. Right? So what does that mean for us then? It means this. It means that if you look at a standard deviation of growing season length in Canada, I've done the calculations here. The mean or the average is 107.5, plus one standard deviation will be 71 for a total of 178.5. So you can see on this graph I've put 107.5 was the mean, and one standard deviation above that was 178.5. So if you're in a place with a growing season that's, let's say, 180 days long, you can say that's significantly long. Or one less than the mean is 36.5. So if you're in a place with, let's say, 30-day growing season, that's significantly short. If you have more than 249 days, that's like almost a year, that's extremely significantly long growing season, etc. And you can see it even gets down to the negatives here. So that's a way of making it not subjective, rather than you saying, oh, that's quite a long growing season, or that's not a very long growing season. Statisticians have figured out what that really means statistically, and that's where standard deviation is used.